starring Ronni Newton.
Starring.
Okay. Starring our guests. It's all about the guests. So, starring Julio and Kelly. So, all right. So what she does is she puts it on Neighbors and Friends. She puts it on Political Forum. She puts it on Chat, and she puts it on Junkie. And then TV picks us up, and then I start with introductions. So.
And I actually did write it up in advance.
Yeah. You know, somebody in the beginning when we started doing this, it was like 6 minutes to do what Ronni can do.
Yep.
Like
no, I put it in Word and I saved it, and it's ready to go. And we're just sharing it in a couple different groups, and then we'll be good.
And if I have that little glitch again, I'll log out and come back in. But it looks like the broadcast continues uninterrupted, so that's good.
All right, and we are good to go.
Okay, all right, terrific. Welcome to this week's WeHod.com Weekly Roundtable. I'm John Lyons, joined as always by Ronni Newton, the managing editor of WeHod.com. We are also being carried locally. We are being carried locally on WeHod.com. We're also being carried on Neighbors and Friends, as well as several other broadcast partners. Regionally, we're being carried on WHCI TV Channel 5, and statewide, we're being carried on Connecticut News Junkie. We welcome all of our viewers from around the region and across the state. The new school year is set to start next Tuesday for West Hartford students. In anticipation of this happening, we welcome two of the principals from our local school, Kelly Browse, who is the principal of Bugby School, and Julio Duarte, who is the Conard High School principal. They're here to tell us about the start of the new year, the usual and the unusual, which hopefully there's plenty of both, or at least plenty of one of them anyway. We're going to talk about preparedness, including preparedness, of course, for COVID-19 and what the hybrid learning model that West Hartford is using will be like. So Kelly and Julia, welcome to the show.
All right. Thank you. Great to be here.
And thank you so much on my behalf for joining us as well. I'm really interested, even though I don't have kids in the public schools anymore. We're actually having UConn graduate school downstairs in our basement right now, but I'm really excited and interested to have you as our guests and to hear what you have to say.
So we'll have to do a show on UConn graduate school because we also have UConn graduate school going on in our house as well. So anyway, conversation for another show. So Kelly, let me start with you. How long have you been the principal of Bugby, and what's the same this year that in terms of enthusiasm?
So it's my 5th year here at Bugby, and it's electric here this week because everybody gets to be back at school. And I was walking around today in the classrooms, and the desks are spread out and there's new sanitizer at the doors, and certainly we've made some adjustments, but I was looking at the bulletin boards and every kid's name and just the really cute, somebody said like, "You're turtly awesome" was on a bulletin board. All that cute elementary stuff is right there ready to greet kids. And it was just this reminder that we're back. We get to see kids in a couple days, which we're all so pumped about. And it's almost like absence has made the heart grow fonder. And for our teachers, they've put even more energy into the beautification of their classrooms. So it's pretty fun being back this week.
And Julia, same question for you.
Yeah, I completely agree with Kelly. I mean, I think one of the things is, as you know, we've all been working so hard to get everything ready to go. And I just kept every day coming in and something was just missing and I couldn't really figure out what it was. And then I realized it's just the kids. That's what we're missing, And so even as the faculty came back this week, it really kind of re-energized me again, and talking to them and seeing just their excitement to have students back in. Really kind of got me going again. And it's just, as I sent an email a little while ago to our students, and just, I really mean it when I say I'm excited and I can't wait to see students walk in our hallways again.
There's always a lot of enthusiasm with the start of the new year. When we were setting this up, talking to Tom Moore, asking for advice on guests, he said, look, we want to talk about the excitement and some of the enthusiasm, but obviously there's a lot of things that are going to be very different. So Julia, I'll start with you on that. Talk about some of the differences, some of the precautions you're taking, and what are some of your expectations of your staff and of your kids?
Sure. So I think, what's interesting is we always focus on safety. School safety has always been, the main goal of everything we do. I think just all of a sudden now it's a different type of safety that we're looking at. And so that's really, again, continued to be, as we've looked at things, the focal point. You'll certainly see, and kids will see, desks are a little bit farther apart, as Kelly mentioned. You've got hand sanitizers. One of the things we've done here too is we've created some one-way hallways, but also one-way stairwells. And so just some of those pieces, really talking to students and the faculty. It's going to take a little bit of time to get used to that. But I think at the end of the day, those are all things that are going to help make everybody safer. And it's going to be a real focus and goal of ours. And I'm just confident now that that's going to be something that our kids are excited to sort of do, and they want to be here, and that they're going to be happy to follow any of those precautionary things that we've put in place.
Talk about the high school. Oh, sorry, Ronni, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, so looking at the physical area of the school, I actually was at Conard on Monday and went to Charter Oak just to go to an elementary school and a high school and just see what was different. And I actually kind of felt like I had to look pretty hard to see anything that looked dramatically different. At Conard, I did notice the one-way signs, actually noticed them after I was walking the wrong way down the hallway. Luckily, school wasn't in session yet, so I didn't get into any trouble. Although there was a teacher who saw me and she was going the wrong way, and she realized, and she turned around and went all the way back around the building. But between that and the stairwell, and maybe some, the office looked different with the plexiglass, but not really all that different. And there were some hand sanitizer stations, but other than that, it pretty much looked like Conard. It wasn't as dramatically transformed as I thought it might be. What about, procedurally, like, are the water fountains turned off? Other things like that.
And so what I'll say is, I really want to give a lot of credit to Tom Moore and Andy Morrow, who've been really working hard, and really their focus and their goal has been that we want to make sure that we're doing all these things that are, for safety purposes, but we still want to make sure this is a school, and we wanted to make sure it's still as welcoming as we can. And so that's why I'm actually pleased to hear that you walk in and feel like it's still Conard, and that, the things that we put in place, like our one-way stairwells, in our hallways, like they're changes, but they're not huge changes that I think kids are going to, really feel or make it feel uncomfortable. We have taken away and shut down most of our water fountains, I'd say all of them. But what we've done is we've put water bottle fitting stations in. And that's been messaging to students is, listen, bring your water from home, bring it filled up. If you need some additional water, go to a water bottle filling station and you can still have your water. So again, I think those are some of the changes in my mind. They're not major, like, okay, I'd prefer, it might be easier to drink from a water fountain, but you know what, if I fill my water bottle up and I bring it to class, like, I think that's still a good thing to keep kids hydrated. And it's also a welcoming piece. So, I'm actually really glad to hear that you say that, Ronni, when you walked the building, that you still felt like it was the good old Conard.
Well,
absolutely.
I need to ask the silliest question of the night, but I remember this is giving me anxiety back to my high school days, which is a long time ago. With the kids now dealing with a one-way traffic pattern within the school, is there enough time between classes, or have you had to make adjustments for them to get from one class to another?
Yeah, so we've certainly taken that into consideration. We've extended our passing time. It's now going to be 5 minutes in between classes. But the truth is, and that's going to be with everything you're going to hear me say, is the messaging to our faculty, and they understand it and they want to, is we just need to be flexible. If a student gets there and it's a little bit later, where maybe in the past we would kind of be like, hey, where you get? You got to get here. The bell right now. Listen, this is different, and we understand it may have taken a little bit longer to get here, and we really just want to be flexible and understanding of where kids are, and that's, again, aligned with our model and our philosophy. It's always about get to know the kid's story, understand what the rationale and the reasoning behind it is, and then make the appropriate decision. And so I think that's really sort of been our mindset, and really even for students. Like, again, it's going to take some time. I'm guilty of that same crime, Ronni. I've walked that one-way hallway several times because that's been my path for the past 15 years. So it's going to take a little bit of time, as I say, to get used to that, or to teach an old dog a new trick, right? But I'll get there and we'll figure that out. And I actually believe we'll probably have a lot of chuckles looking at each other through our masks and say, "Yep, we're going the wrong way." and I have a feeling that Mr. Duarte will be called out several times for going the wrong way, and I'm going to work hard to be better every day.
So Kelly, I think your challenge is easier, specifically relating to these topics, because the young ones, they just line up behind the teacher. And so tell us a little bit about what's going on there.
It sounds easier, except for those of us who just have one hallway, you can't really make it one way. So we don't have too many one-way hallways. Some elementaries are able to do that. But students aren't leaving their classroom that much. So, that cohorting model is just so much easier at the elementary school where, they're coming into their classroom, they're spending the bulk of the day there or outside. We've got art on a cart and music on a cart who's coming to them. Procedurally, the things that are changing for us are kind of parents are such a lively part of our day-to-day happenings, and we're just reducing the footprint this year to keep everybody safe. And so, to start the year, we're going to be limiting visitors and volunteers and even just lineup, having so many students come on campus at the beginning of the day. I used to call it like our pack of sardines, where all of our K1 and 2 kids would line up and all the parents right around want to huddle in and see them in. We've spread that out around the building, and I think all elementaries are doing that. So it's those kind of procedures that we had to totally rethink. And like Julia said, the executive leadership has given us that guidance of make it feel like school. And then I want to thank, we've had teachers volunteering their time all summer to help us really creatively think outside the box of what this looks like and how it truly works for kids. So I've just felt like no one person has all the creative ideas, and it's really come together beautifully. But those
what
types
is
of
the
things
first
will
day
feel
of
different.
school going to look like? I mean, I'm used to, the flagpole ceremony at the elementary school, and then all the teachers line up behind, all the kids line up behind their teachers who have the flags, and they march in together, and the parents are all huddled there. What's that going to look like this year?
So you've been to my mob scene on the first day.
I have.
And I'm going to miss it a lot. It's such an amazing energy to start all together as one community around our bus circle. And this year we're going to do it different because it's important to be safe. And, our lineup is going to be around the building. Teachers are going to be outside greeting their students right by their entry doors, whether it's right outside their classroom or at the playground entrances. And for the first day, we are going to let parents, head up those stairs and around the back just to see their child in and have that safe feeling as they leave them with us. And then, moving forward, we have arrival plans that we've put out to parents in videos already about, where you say goodbye to your child as they head up to their line. So that first day will feel different. We still have a virtual flagpole ceremony to kick it off. And, we have some student participation for that. But capitalizing on that virtual piece that we learned so much about this spring is really how we're going to come together across the school, because we can't all be 400 students around the flagpole or in the auditorium this year.
Kelly, what about outdoor learning? Is that on the table? And what about recess, which I know is important in the K through 5 level?
Yeah, and we're excited for it. We're trying to get the kids outside as much as possible. I think they're going to be loving, we've created supply bags for every student in every elementary school. So they already are coming to school with everything they need to work and learn. And that includes materials that they can bring outside. At Bugby specifically, we have 6 specific outdoor learning spaces that were designed with the teachers this summer that are kind of out of sight of recess, so it's not too distracting for the learners. And we've got whiteboards and seating for students, and they have their little supply bag that they're going to bring out. And then our teachers this week, one of their tasks was working together to figure out how to split and share that space so that it's maximized. So the outdoor learning is definitely happening. We've also been talking about social emotional learning being such a huge piece this year. And if we can do that outside where the kids can take off their masks if they're comfortable, they can see each other's faces. And so that's something we're thinking about. What do you teach when you're outside? And then for recess, we are keeping all students in their cohort. So they won't be going out and playing on the playscape with a whole grade level. They really will be separated by cohort just to maintain that distance. And as students are maintaining distance, they can have their masks off outside. If they're on the playscape, they'll put it on, and we'll be practicing that with them. But I'm excited for it, and the kids need to not just come back to learn, but come back to see each other and have some fun together. So outside is going to be a big piece of our day. We need no rain in September, John Lyons. I need you to help us with that.
Well, I will do my best. September is we've had a nice change in pattern. We've been getting rain, which we desperately need, but maybe we'll get lucky and be dry Monday to Friday, rain on the weekend. So they'll love that too. Julia, what about you? Same question. Outdoor learning, and I know there's not recess per se, but the kids can congregate outside in general. What are you doing there?
Yeah,
And I'm
absolutely.
also curious about the entry to school, like what that's going to look like when the kids arrive.
So let me go with John's question first, Ryan, and then we can come back and Kelly can answer that as well. So, we've been really pushing, and I've been pushing to faculty to think about going outdoors. I think, again, a little bit different at the high school. I think about myself in college and in high school. If I'm an English teacher and we're sort of talking about a book and thinking about what we read, the reality is, let's go outside. Let's sit outside. I remember back in the day when I was in college and the teacher said, "Hey, we're going out." That was like, oh my God, this is great. So we want to try to kind of make that more of a norm, particularly now when the weather's hopefully going to cooperate with us and we can do that and go outside and have all those conversations. You'll also see that we've purchased numerous picnic tables that'll go outside so that students can go. And if a classroom goes out, they can go out there and do that. We really, again, want to provide opportunity for kids to be together and to have and see each other and learn, but to make sure we're doing that in a safe environment.
And then Ronnie's question.
Yeah. So is it going to be, take a while to get all the kids into the school? Or are they going to need to kind of march in like 6 feet apart, or how's that going to look?
Yeah, I mean, at the high school level, we're not really looking to change any major practice as far as entrance. We do. Just the reality, the cohort is going to have a significantly reduced traffic coming to school every day. We're also looking at the number of students now that are being brought to school by parents or guardians or driving themselves. And so, automatically that sort of creates 3 natural entrances for us. So we feel really confident about that piece. And the message really is, and that's going to be the biggest shift. We used to love kids coming here and they'd all want to hang out in the hallways. And, when you talk and you kind of get that energy up before you get to the classroom. And now really the thing is just, we're going to be asking you, once you get here, go to your classroom and kind of sit down and get ready to learn.
I'm looking at a question here. Bear with me. We're watching a substitute teacher in West Hartford. My daughter is starting her freshman year at Conard. Thank you for doing this, Ronnie. So it's a thank you note to Ronnie. So, literally
and you're welcome. And it looks like somebody has somehow posted a request to visit a package store, but that's not a question.
It doesn't qualify as a question. So now, talk about general. Now, if I know correctly, we're doing it's 5 days in, 5 days out, alternating weeks for the kids. Am I right, or am I getting that mixed up with? There's so many different things in different districts. So how do you see that playing out? I'll ask both of you.
So I can start because it's definitely different, elementary and secondary. So at the elementary level, we're going to have half our kids coming into school, and it's a shortened day. So it's 8:30 to 1:50. And while they're here, we're calling it boosting them up and moving them along academically, because we've got this small group that we can really provide intense targeted instruction with. They go home, and then the teachers, switch hats, and they go into their virtual world, and they're going to do 2 sessions with the students who are home that week. So even if you're home that week, you are seeing your teacher every day, which is great. And the teachers are also posting activities that align with whatever the learning targets are for that week or month that the students are working on throughout the school day. So the students that are home for the week will have work to do throughout the day, whether it's, videos and related activities, some at-home writing, things like that, that all relate to what we're working on. And then they get to see their teacher every day. And then the next week it flips, and we get that group that was at home, we get them in school. One of the biggest things that we worked on this summer, I would say it took a lot of effort and creative thinking, was our special schedule, because here in elementary school, all the kids get to see art and music and PE and library, and 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade see Spanish. So those are teachers who end up seeing a lot of kids in the course of the week. And what we figured out was we've created a rotation where students who are in person that week are going to see the same special every day. So that special teacher, if it's the art teacher, she sees the same 6 classes over the course of the week. And then when the red group comes back, it rotates to PE and then to music. So it was a really creative way to make sure that was an important experience for our learners and share those essential learning experiences, but make sure that we're reducing our exposure and providing it in an exciting way for kids. And they have been a team. I have to give them so much credit. Our special area team has just thought so far outside of the box. They've moved everything to a cart, or our PE teacher has now, gotten everything outside, and we're really excited for that. But that's a big shift in what the day-to-day will look like for kids.
So, all right, I want to drill down a little bit because I'm a little confused. And so if I have a third grade child, for example, so they're going to have their regular core, they might take Spanish at that age, right? Have they introduced Spanish at that point? So week 1, my child will be in class from the times you mentioned till 1:45 or whatever it was.
Yeah, so a day for a student, they come in at 8:35 and their teacher's going to do a morning meeting, and they're going to have one specials class a day. So let's say this week their specials class is art, and that art teacher comes in at 9:15 and they have their art class, and then their regular teacher keeps going on with math and literacy instruction. They go out for recess and lunch, and they might do either a tech training. We want to teach our students how to be independent with some of the things we're asking them to do at home. And then they leave early. So it is definitely a shortened day. We have a lot to get to, but that's what it'll look like for them.
So then week 2, this third grader will be learning from home in the afternoons with the same teacher.
Correct. So their classroom teacher.
And I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but they're going to be going, it's a tough day for them. They're going to be going 5 solid hours with live, and then another probably 3 hours with online. That's a tough.
Don't worry, I get to see it firsthand. My amazing husband is a 4th grade teacher in town. So yeah, it's their one class, and we're used to having classes of 20, 22, maybe 23 at the lower grades. And we're used to having all those students, but we're used to also kind of plugging through, in the same schedule. So it's this whole new mindset. And we've been spending a lot of time this week with the teachers kind of wrapping our brains around it and looking at it in chunks and thinking about, we want to accomplish learning goals in 6-week chunks. So we're looking at those 6 weeks and what we want to accomplish for literacy and math and science, and how do you deliver it, both when they're in person, what do you send home to work on independently, and what do you teach in those small group live instruction, on the computer, because there's only so much you can get to. You want to get to certain things in live instruction, certain things in the classroom, and certain things, on their own at home. But there's a lot of balls in the air, and if anyone can do it, it's our West Hartford teachers. They've been beyond impressive this week.
And Kelly, what are you doing for it? Is Bugbee still having a relationship with the students from Bugbee who are doing remote learning, or is that all being handled kind of district wide?
So that's a great question. All of the elementary students who have enrolled in the remote learning program are officially in the remote learning experience program, is what they're calling it. And Carrie Jones, who's our director of elementary ed, as you know, she is officially the principal of that school, which I know is already over 750 students. But the principals of the elementary schools have been meeting and thinking about what can we do to keep them connected, those students who are in the remote learning program, to their home schools, whether it's posting, our morning announcements, on our website, or sending out live assembly links if we're going to do a virtual assembly, things like that, so that the students who have a remote learning teacher and a classroom that's made up of 5th graders from Bugbee and Whiting Lane and Webster Hill still have that connection to their home school.
Do you know what percentage of Bugbee is remote, or is it pretty equal across the district?
Yeah, I think it's about 15% across the district. And I think at Bugbee, we're a little bit under that. We have 18 sections still, which is what we typically run here at Bugbee. So we do have full sections at all our grades in person. But I think it's about 15% across the district. And at Bugbee, it's probably a little bit less.
So the kids that are doing entirely at home would not have their specials. Is that correct?
So they do have specials, but they have a specials teacher in the remote school, and that's going to be built into their day. So if you're a remote learner, you are meeting in a small group. So about 5 other students will be in your session for an hour and a half with your classroom teacher for literacy and math. And then you have an additional session that you'll log into at a separate time for whether it's PE or music or art. So they have really built a very comprehensive remote program that I think is going to really impress those learners and those families who are enrolled in it.
Gotcha. Julio, we covered a lot there, but you have an entirely different cohort that you're having to work with. So I imagine some of these strategies that are in place for the younger schools won't work, and then maybe you've got some strategies that will work that maybe wouldn't work with younger kids. Tell us about some of the differences in your program and what you're doing.
Yeah, so I mean, I think a lot of the advantage that we have is, our kids are older, and so we also have a different level of expectation that they understand how to use technology and those pieces, and that's part of what West Hartford's been working on with these students across their own educational career, ready to get ready for the world after high school. And so now is an opportunity to sort of take advantage of all the things they've gained and learned. So for us, it's really, we'll have students in when the students in, and we've broken them up into two cohorts. So we've got the red cohort and the blue cohort, and that's all based on last name. And what we'll do is when one of the cohorts is in, they will attend their course here, their class. So we're calling it like a block. So they go to their block, which would be, say, English. They're sitting in English class for 55 minutes. And, the typical class right now, we're looking at probably 12 to 14 students. Many of them are much lower than that. We've got a lot of courses that'll have 8 kids sitting in there at a time. So again, the excitement for the teacher is I have never been able to have such a small classroom, and I can really do a lot of great work and really make sure that my students know what's going on, and I can check for understanding and really do a lot of those great pieces when students are here. And that'll carry through 4 periods, 4 blocks. So they'll be here till 11:25, and then all students will go home. And then the teachers actually get their lunch break at that time, kind of recuperate and then get ready to go. And then they'll log on and they'll start at 12 o'clock with the online learning with the hybrid remote learners. And so they'll do half-hour blocks there. And so if during the day I taught, let's say, again, my English 9 class, I taught that course with the students that were sitting in front of me. In that afternoon, I will then get the other half of my class that was at home, and now I teach them at that time. So we feel really, it's just a great model for us to kind of get back in the swing of things and to sort of make sure we do it slowly and carefully and thoughtfully, but it also allows us to really maintain that momentum with students. And, I really like the idea of going a week on, a week off. I think that, that helps, I think, with lots of different pieces, particularly for our students. We know many of them are responsible to help support Kelly's students and have younger siblings and are responsible for that childcare piece. And so rather than trying to, figure out, all right, I need childcare on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and this week, Wednesday. Like, it's consistent. I know I've got this week and that week. And again, by cohorting, it's allowed us to, as principals, make sure we're working together to have siblings home on the same days so that they can help and sort of support other siblings, or even just for parents, if they're working and need to take some time to be home, they're now not needing to take all these scattered days. They can really plan ahead.
There's another benefit to the hybrid too that you made me think of. And, one of the huge things that comes with having these online sessions every single day is we're in this because we're in a pandemic. So if a kid is sick, they can actually stay home. And as long as they're not, if they're ill and they're in bed, we want them to take care of themselves. But if they're isolating or feeling like they can log in, they can pop right into their afternoon session in the other cohort, which is huge because, we've been talking through this summer with the health and safety advisory. What do we do with those students who are out for 10 to 14 days just isolating? And this really affords them the opportunity to continue accessing education that whole time, really without missing a beat.
Yeah, I'm really glad they brought that up, Kelly, because that was one of the things. And, Paul Vicinus and Ann McKernan have worked tirelessly. I'm not sure that they've slept in weeks, to be honest with you, the amount of work that they've put in months, to be, fully transparent. But one of the things at the high school level is our students are really conscientious and they want to do well. And like all of us, when back in the day, the pre-COVID days, I'll call it, when you had a little bit of maybe the sniffles, you would just sort of tough it out and go and try to muster through that. And really, that's what our kids have been trying to do because they don't want to miss the content. They don't want to miss class. And so this model really now allows us to say, listen, the priority here is to take care of yourself and everyone else. And so if you're just not feeling well or you think you're coming down with something, don't worry about it. Stay home, and you can then jump on to the afternoon hybrid piece, and you can get your content and you can get your, not get behind that way. And so, again, I think that's something that I'm really glad you highlighted, Kelly, because that's a real, I think, smart piece of this program.
But the question I was going to ask is, and on both levels, will the same lessons pretty much be taught in the on week and off week so that kids end up at the same place?
Yeah, so at the high school level, again, we understand that when they're in class, you're going to probably be able to move a little bit quicker, be able to do a little bit more, and that's kind of been the goal of ours. So I like to kind of start on this race, where you've got the kids that are going and they're in school, they'll probably get ahead a little bit. Then these guys home will kind of get here. But then when the weeks flip, sort of even out. And so the way we're sort of looking at everything is taking that lens from a 2-week, getting through that whole cycle. And, we really feel confident that at the end of that cycle, the kids will be fairly aligned. Is it going to be perfect every time? No. And again, I trust the teachers are going to kind of gauge where's the student sitting in front of them. And that's been something we've talked a lot about. We really want to focus on that social and emotional learning, and we really want to focus on some of those aspects, because I think for all of us, there's a lot of things that we want to make sure kids are healthy, and the kids have time to process what have the past 6 months been like. And so we'll get through some of that, but we want to make sure that we're not just, head down plowing ahead either, and that we're taking care of students in that mindset.
Will there be recordings? In other words, if a session is taught, will it be available for one of the kids to access at a future time or date?
So at the high school level, what I would say is we've encouraged faculty that if they're doing some type of, and here's an example, I would say if I'm doing a physics experiment and I'm doing it for my students that are live, what I've been telling teachers is feel free to record that and then post that in your Google Classroom and let students watch it. Again, that enhances that lesson so that when I then jump on for my 30-minute session, the expectation is that students would have already watched that lesson, which would have probably taken you 10 to 15 minutes to do in the classroom. And so you think about that sort of catch-up piece. That's what we're looking at. The reality is for me, at least personally, I think to record things and post them that are anything longer than 5 to 10 minutes, I think it's just hard to want to keep people's attention, not just students, anyone's attention. And so we're really trying to look at, let's minimize those pieces and really focus on the things that we know work well. And that's those conversations and connecting with students.
So is it anticipated that the students who are on an off week are doing things during the morning when they're not in their school session, when they're not supposed to be logged on? Or do they have kind of any time of the day to do their schoolwork?
So it's probably different high school and elementary, but in elementary school, we're going to continue posting asynchronous activities, right from the classroom teacher. So they'll be providing those learning activities, understanding that all homes are going to look different, where students are. My West Hartford student's going to be with grandma. And so, they're going to find their time to do those activities when he's home on those weeks. And some students won't. Other classrooms that, some of the teachers that I've been talking to this week are thinking, maybe I can live stream in for my morning meeting. So everybody gets that fresh start and gets the same message to start their day. So there is an intention at the elementary school to make sure every at-home learner is greeted by their teacher in some form in the morning, because they really need their teacher to say, your school day is starting. But it's really going to be up to the caregiver to decide, what schedule is working and when they can get the child on. And that's understandable. People are in different positions with their child care right now. So the intention is to make sure that they have time in their day to get to those activities, and then definitely log in for the afternoons, because those are instructional sessions, and we definitely want students there to keep moving forward with their learning.
I think it's important. Maybe it's not my place to say this to our viewers. Maybe it's better if one of you say it. But my takeaway from what you guys are saying is, for now, I think we need to look at this as a glass half full solution. And again, Ronni and I are similar age. Our kids are kind of at the similar ages, but I'd be feeling good, and I think people should be feeling good with knowing that my kids are in a classroom size that, ostensibly half or less, and getting what I really think will be incredible attention from the teacher. I mean, I think that's a huge, there's not much positive about COVID-19. I think this is a big positive. So hopefully, people watching and processing all of this at home, we're getting a ton of comments too, that look, there is a glass half full element to all of this.
You're right on. I'll just chime in, because I think about what we can do with, 8 to 12 or whatever that number is in the cohort, just safety wise, even, we had a couple students, we had 6 or 7 students come in a couple weeks ago to do some videos, and they're just getting used to what it means to be socially distant. They have these memories of what school is. So when they walk in, they kind of go back a little bit to what they remember. And with a quick teaching point, they quickly adjust. But it's so much easier to teach them those safe habits in the small group, so that if we can teach them using this hybrid model, then we can bring everybody back because they've established those safer habits. And then instructionally, to teach 10 kids, in front of you, it's amazing what you can do in the elementary level. And we're calling it boost them forward during the week and continue building when they're at home. So it's that same leapfrog that Julia was kind of talking about, but we say boost when they're here because you can really shoot them like a rocket, as far as they can because it's such a small group, and then keep them building. So yeah, I love the model. I really do. And I think, if we can use this model for a little while, we can teach them how to be safe with each other, and we will get to that point where we can bring them all back. But it's a great place to start.
Do you, and this may not be an appropriate question for you guys, so feel free to shut me down, but is there a roadmap to normalcy at this point? Meaning full-time in the class? We're getting that question effectively from one of our viewers.
Yeah, so there is kind of that question, but I'll let them
I mean,
answer,
I think
'cause
that's
have
the
talked
goal.
to
And
the
I think
superintendent
what I was just kind of saying is, we're intending to use this hybrid model as a teaching tool so that we can make it a safe place to come back with those good learning habits and those good distancing habits, because that is the plan. We want everybody back. This isn't, I think, right. The challenge in choosing the hybrid model was just feeling that pressure on parents for what to do with the young kids, for sure. And I know our executive leadership really felt that perspective and really weighed that heavily. But I think it's our safest way. I mean, if we bring them all back and we haven't really taught them yet how to be safe, that brings up more concerns about how long will we stay open before things are happening, and we haven't just had the chance to teach them yet. So that is, I think we're in the roadmap right now is really what I'm thinking, and this is the pathway back, and that's the intention behind the hybrid.
Yeah, I agree with Kelly, and I think that that's a piece that, I know that the executive team really wrestled with all these different models and different options, and like I said, I give them a tremendous amount of credit for coming up with a creative plan that's very different than I think a lot of other towns, but I think is really second to none. And just, I know Kelly had mentioned it before, the amount of things that I've seen faculty do for students from the moment that we shut down last year. There's still stories, emails coming in. I get them all the time from kids and parents just saying thank you of something that someone did that I had no idea they did. I had no idea. No one asked them to do it. But I can tell you that teachers were just willing to do anything to help kids be successful. And, on the flip side of that, kids are willing to do things for teachers. I had a student last year that had emailed a teacher who said, hey, I know you've got some health issues. If you need to, I'm happy to go shopping for you. Like I can get you some food. Like I'm healthy, I'm young. And just to think of that whole mindset, I know that Dr. Haskins is putting in with one community, like that's really what we're talking about, and I think that if we can all sort of step back and not look at it from like what's best for me in this moment and really think about like, what can I do to help my fellow classmate, my teacher, whatever, whoever it is, really, who can I help in here in the community? I think we're just going to see a lot of things get better. And I think we'll get to that point, John, where hopefully everybody can be here. Because I can say that is ultimately our goal. 100%. That is our goal. That is absolutely Superintendent Moore's goal. But that being said, we also want to make sure that we do it safely. And I think that's really the two pieces that I would probably highlight for that.
A crisis like this, you learn quickly who the heroes are, and they can surprise you pleasantly. So that's a nice story. And we're getting a lot of people commenting, just thanking you and thanking the educators around town for what they do. So I want to talk a little bit of the annual rite of passage, which I actually always enjoyed. I think maybe some people didn't, but I always loved Parents' Night. It was nice to meet my kids' teachers. It was always nice to, in the Castle Hall, to say hello to Dan, who's a good friend. And, talk to us. Has there been any discussion of a virtual Parents' Night or some sort of Parents' Night? It comes quickly.
It's big at the elementary school for sure. And it's funny, our district has been doing so much work with this idea of welcoming schools. And last year, I would say around December, January, the principals were all brainstorming things we would be changing about our curriculum night to really make that first time with parents a connected, enjoyable one, building relationships. And now we're in a different place, and we're still going to use all of those thoughts, but virtually. So I think it'll be a little bit later in September. We really just need to get our feet wet and get the kids back and get into the groove. And then, later in September, we'll be doing a virtual Parents' Night just to keep the footprint low right now. That's still the overarching health and safety goal for sure. But I don't know about the high school.
Yeah, I'd say we're on the same page with that. So right now, that is the plan we're looking at. Obviously, a little bit different when you've got so many students and different things like that. But I think ultimately that's going to be where we'll land. We definitely think it's important. We know it's important, and we want to make sure that teachers have the opportunity too. And I think as much of that night is not just about kind of being there and seeing. It's also that connection, and you hear every day all these stories at the dinner table about your teacher, your son's teacher, your daughter's teacher, and it's like I just want to see your face so I know who they're talking about all the time. So I think there's just that piece of it too.
And you reminded me, at the elementary level, we also usually have a big meet and greet this week, the 2 days before school. We have an open house. They all come to see their classroom, find their desk. And it's just not feasible this year. And so we, across all of 11 elementary schools, all the teachers have been working this week to get their classrooms together because they're actually doing welcome videos. So by tomorrow, all the families are going to receive a video to get to know their teacher a little bit, take a look around the room, and just really be able to watch that with their learner so that they can have a predictable expectation for Tuesday or Thursday, whenever their first day is back in the building. So that's a shift in what we're doing. And it was all because of what we learned in the spring about virtual tools that made it possible.
One of the things I want to just say too, I've been so thankful for just the parent community. Honestly, all the emails I'm getting, they're positive and they're thanking us and they understand. And I think that's the biggest thing, because the reality is I would love to have parents come to open house and walk the building and high five them, shake hands, all those things that we love doing with our kids. And we just can't do that right now. And to have, a parent community that understands that and knows that the decisions we're making, they're not easy, but they're really at the, safety is always coming first. And to have that support, I think makes it easier for us to make some of the decisions that, break our hearts to do too. And I think that sometimes people don't understand when I'm saying, okay, we're not doing open house this year. That breaks my heart, because I love that night. I love to see parents and get to see some of those connections. So, again, our goal is to get there. But right now, I think it's important that we keep on this path.
What about orientations? I mean, everybody's going to have some sort of an orientation, but for the students who are new to the school, the incoming ninth graders, the incoming kindergartners, is anything special being done for them? Is Link Crew taking place in the high schools this year?
Yeah, so actually we're really excited. So we did Link Crew. We had a virtual Link Crew orientation with our juniors and seniors. And actually throughout this week, we've had freshmen coming in. So we had essentially a voluntary sign up for anyone that wanted to come. We had over 280 freshmen sign up to do that. And so they've been coming to Conard. We've been doing that and been able to maintain good physical distancing thanks to our Link Crew leaders. We've had groups, or we'll call them pods, 4 or 5 students walking and seeing the building and getting almost a one-on-one escort from a student and hearing it from a student perspective. This morning at 8 a.m. And actually right when I sign off this, Ronni, I'm going to sign on to a Google Meet where we're doing it with freshman parents. And so I'm introducing myself and saying hello to freshman parents. Our 2 freshman counselors, and I know Hall's been doing the same thing for many of these activities, have done a lot of really good work and putting resources together to sort of go through and explain those pieces. So, it's interesting. I actually feel really good about the work we've done for our freshmen to kind of help get them acclimated and welcome them into our Conard family.
And Kelly, what about for like incoming kindergartners or even students who are new to the school in other grades?
Yeah, no, we've that was a really hard decision as someone who has a kindergartner, knowing they weren't going to get to go visit and get that first taste. But, for safety reasons, like Julia was talking about, it was just so important for us to make some of those hard decisions about, welcoming people back in those congregations. And so we are doing those virtual welcomes that if they haven't been out yet, they'll be out by tomorrow. And in that is, for them to really meet their teacher, walk around the room together, a couple, anticipated questions will be answered there. And then Wednesday's going to be a quieter day for our kinders. So, they used to join us out on the flagpole on their first day. It's a very overwhelming experience. This year, they're going to go right into their classroom from the door, that leads right into their room, and their parents will get to wave goodbye. And they'll have that quieter orientation experience pretty much on their first day, which will be a nice, quiet experience for them. And I think it'll get them settled. Lots of pictures will be sent home to make sure parents see what's going on. But it's definitely going to be different than our past practice this year. And it's one of those decisions that had to be made out of safety, which was definitely hard.
There's one question that we have in the question queue. When I guess I should say when and if schools do go back into full session, will the students who are sick, will there still be a way for them to learn online? Can they just jump into the remote school, or will that be counted as an absence? Or, will there be some element of the remaining hybrid for those particular students?
So
or if there's a snow day?
I'll jump in. So, I would say up until kind of the first week, maybe not even August 1st or whatever, we were starting to plan all those details about what it was going to look like in the full speed ahead. And as soon as we shift to hybrid, I think our energy has really been just, okay, let's get to the hybrid. So we're putting all the pieces together, I think, for September 8th. And I think as soon as September 8th happens, as a leadership team, we're really putting all of our energy into the next step. So I don't want to speak out of turn, because I know there were a lot of creative ideas being thrown around about how we would meet those needs, and what they would be counted as, but also how we would ensure that they were getting academics during those absences. I just don't want to speak out, because some of them might sound like promises that I don't know if that will be the plan. So I think once we open in the hybrid and our details come together, then as a leadership team, we're all going right back to it. And Paul and Ann and Carrie, they're not sleeping for another couple months, because we'll be planning the next step. And really kudos to them. As Julia said, they've been outstanding. But yeah, I think that's going to be our next page in the playbook, once we open in this way.
I have one final question for me, just talking about the nursing staff, the medical staff at the schools. Have they received special training if a child does become ill, comes down with a fever, that sort of thing in school? What's happened there?
Yeah, so we've got an amazing the whole district, but I can really speak for Conway. We got two amazing nurses who've been really working hard throughout the summer, and actually we've had a lot of conversations about things and ideas to kind of look at some of those pieces. And we've created what we're calling sort of an isolation room, that if a student has a fever or any two of the other symptoms, that we would be able to bring them over to that room and make sure that they're sort of isolated and can sit there and wait for a parent or guardian to come pick them up, so that we can ensure that there's not really this crossover if it's unnecessary. But again, I can't speak highly enough about the nurses that we've got, the entire nursing team. And they're student centered, and they're willing to do anything. And I'm almost needing to tell them, right, well, let's figure this out, because we have to be safe too, because they're willing to do anything for kids.
Yeah. And in terms of that, isolation room, or if it's even being able to bring them outside as we wait for their parent, we were also gifted this amazing support of CNAs at every building, certified nurses aides. So they're going to be helping those children so the nurse can continue working with the other students. We were just doing trainings today with additional PPE. If we do have a medical emergency, we were training our medical emergency team for, how you put that on and how you respond quickly and you help if somebody falls off the playscape and it goes wrong. So, we're definitely in good shape, but the nurses have been exceptional leaders through all of this. They got trained Monday morning and have been sharing it with our whole faculty all week.
So certified nursing assistants, is that a new role at the school, or have they always been there?
Yep. So they're helping us right now. It's a new position that was put into place to help with these isolation rooms, as they're being called. And so it's for students who are running a fever and need to go home. And at the elementary school, on a nice day, we've got room out in the front where they could go with the CNA. Otherwise, if it's a not nice day, they can go right into the room, wait while the parent comes, and then it gets disinfected after they leave. So we've definitely got protocols to kind of keep things separate and make sure everyone stays safe.
Yeah, it's the same at the high school. So it actually reminds me, because I want to make sure that I don't forget to thank our custodians and the entire custodial crew across the district. Bob Palmer, the work that he's done. And, we talked a little bit about sort of unsung heroes. I mean, they are absolutely folks that need to be on that list. I can't tell you the amount of furniture that they've moved around, taking out of a classroom. Then I tell them, nope, I need it back in. Nope, take it out. Nope, put it back in. So I think I got to the point in the summer where they'd run when they saw me coming, but they did some Hercules work. And so I really want to make sure I give them a shout out.
Couldn't agree more. That was a great call. They have been, they're afraid of me too, because we have moved more desks this summer. When they see me, they know what I might be asking, but it's been incredible. And I know that, we might be moving more in a little while, and they're game for it. And they know it's in the best interest of kids. And it's been exceptional, the work that they've done.
And we have a question that popped in. Might be better for the executive group, but I'll throw it your way because it did come in. Have you received any instruction on if there is a positive COVID case at an individual school? Have you heard anything? Would they close it, or is there no direction yet on that topic?
Yeah, I mean, we've certainly gotten our guidelines on that, and we'll be clear with, communicating those pieces. But I think it's also getting an understanding of exactly what that means and what that sort of entails. As Kelly talked about, that's some of the work that those nurses will be able to help us with too, is sort of even just in general for student calls out sick, the ability to now make a phone call and try to get an idea of, okay, why are you out, and kind of help us get a sense of that too. So we'll make sure, and I think Tom had talked about this too during a board meeting, that certainly we'll be communicating with people, but we're not going to be able to disclose, information that folks may ultimately, you may ultimately want as a parent. We're not going to be able to do that because of different, obviously, pieces with privacy and stuff like that. But we will make sure that we're going to be, and I think that's the biggest thing, that Tom's message to the principals from the start, which is, again, one of the things I just love about his leadership, is that we're going to be open and we're going to be honest with parents. And ultimately, families need to make decisions that are best for them. And I think that's the piece when you look at our model, it's really allowed a family to sit down, have a conversation, what is best for our family and the situation that we're in, and then make the decision based on that, and that there is no ill feelings regardless of what that decision is. And the hope is that the West Hartford team is here to help you. And whether you're in, at Bugby, whether you're at Connor, whether you're in the remote school, like it all doesn't matter, because again, we're one community. And so that really has been from the start of all of this. I can say that was Tom's clear message, was just be honest. And don't make, and that was why I appreciated Kelly's response before. We're not going to make promises that we're not sure we can keep, because I think that there's been too many things that people have thought were going to happen that didn't, and too many sort of false promises. And so we're not going to be in that business. We're going to be honest, and we're going to support families and their situations, because again, we know it's very different from house to house.
So, Julia, are you able to talk about sports a little bit, and how that is working with the hybrid model? So are kids able to go to sports practices? I mean, obviously we don't know what's going to happen with sports ultimately, but for right now, when they're having these short practices that are skill-based and conditioning, and right now, so when kids are on an off week, are they still able to come to the school to do their sports practice?
Yeah, so our coaches, again, have done amazing work. And what they've done is really looked at that cohort model and essentially tried to group those groups by cohorts. And so that, although you may have multiple cohorts here, we're really not trying to mix them. And so, that's been just the logistics behind that, as you can imagine, have been unbelievable. That being said, too, when I pull in the parking lot in the morning, and it's 6:30 in the morning, and I see the guys all out on the football team practicing, and they're all, they're wearing their masks, the coaches, and the kids are in pods, kind of in their own group and working hard. It's been really nice to see that piece too, and to know that they can do it, they can be safe. Obviously, as we move forward and need to look at some of those different pieces, we're going to wait and see sort of what the CIAC says, and ultimately, we'll, regardless of what they say, we'll make the decisions that we think are best for us and our community.
I have no more questions, Ronnie. Do you have any questions, or any questions from the viewers? That I can only see the feed on.
Yeah, I have not. I've been trying to check and see if there's any other questions on any of the other sites, and I don't see that there are any others. I actually do have another question about the remote high school. Do you know how many kids are in that program?
The last number that I saw, actually, I had it sitting right here in front of me. The last I had looked was about 329, and that I think was the end of August that I had checked. So we have approximately, I think, about 180 or so students from Conard, and it's actually pretty even across all grade levels.
Mm-hmm. Does it have a name? Like
I will leave that
up
to I'll leave that up to Dr. Kessler to figure out if there's some catchy name.
All right. Well, this was really interesting. It's tough because I just knew, obviously COVID is such a big overhang, and there's so much excitement and enthusiasm with the start of every new school year. But it's, and obviously we want to feel and share in that excitement, but unfortunately COVID is just a part of it. But I don't think, Ronnie and I've had Tom on, we've had other administrators on, we've had Board of Ed members on, we've had town council members on, and there's no question in my mind anyway, I won't speak for Ronnie, but she probably agrees that this town's pretty darn well prepared for what the future holds with respect to education. So thank you to both of you for everything that you do and that you are doing for us, and most importantly for the safety and education of our kids. Ronnie, as always, thank you. Another great show. We will not be having a show next week because it's a holiday week, but we've got some great guests coming up this fall, so you're not going to want to miss a show starting 2 weeks from now. So anyway, as always, thank you both very, very much for coming on. Ronnie, thank you. And
Thank you.
all in a couple of weeks.
All right. I'll probably see some of you over the next couple of weeks as I report on the opening of schools.
All right.
Can't wait for day one.